I remember a time when I felt completely exhausted, not because I had been working hard, but because I was carrying invisible burdens. My body was fine, but my mind felt like a battlefield. Arguments I replayed in my head, worries I never said out loud, and the constant pressure to please others. It was as if tiny leaks had formed in my inner world, draining me slowly, day by day. One evening, sitting quietly, I realized something profound. My energy was not just fuel for survival, it was the very kingdom I lived in. If I failed to guard it, no amount of sleep or food could restore my peace. I thought of how often I gave my energy away to meaningless conflicts, to people who thrived on negativity, or to desires that never truly satisfied me. In that silence, it struck me. What if guarding my energy was the most important spiritual practice? What if protecting this inner kingdom was the key to freedom? That realization was the beginning of my journey into the Buddhist way of conserving energy. When I first began to observe my own life through the lens of Buddhism, I noticed something strange. I was losing more energy through my words than through any physical effort. I remember a particular day when I sat with friends, and the conversation turned into gossip. At first it felt light, even entertaining. But when I returned home that evening, I felt unusually heavy. My heart was restless, and my mind replayed the words I had spoken, words that weren't even necessary. It was then I realized, speech is not just sound. Every word carries weight, and every careless sentence can become a leak in the walls of my inner kingdom. I began to reflect on the Buddha's teaching about right speech. The teaching says that our words should be truthful, kind, purposeful, and spoken at the right time. I asked myself, how often do I speak just to fill silence? How often do I say something without considering whether it heals or harms? The answer was painful. I had been careless most of my life. One incident remains etched in my memory. A close friend came to me for advice, but instead of listening deeply, I rushed to respond, eager to sound wise. My words, though not cruel, carried a subtle sharpness. Days later, I sensed a distance between us. That distance wasn't caused by any grand betrayal, but by the energy I had released without mindfulness. I had used speech not to connect, but to satisfy my own ego. That tiny fracture in trust taught me how powerful words are. They can either protect the harmony of relationships or drain them completely. As I practiced more mindfulness, I noticed how silence itself became a form of protection. There were moments when I wanted to argue, to prove myself right, but instead I paused, breathed, and chose quiet. Strangely, that silence felt like strength, not weakness. It saved me from spilling energy into conflict that had no real value. Slowly, I understood that guarding my energy didn't always mean doing more. It often meant saying less. Now, when I speak, I ask myself 3 questions. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? If my words fail these questions, I let them go. This small discipline has changed the way I carry myself. My speech has become lighter, more intentional, and in turn, my energy feels protected. I no longer return from conversations feeling drained. Instead, I feel aligned with the peace I seek. Through mindful speech, I have begun to build stronger walls around the kingdom of my energy, keeping it safe from the leaks of carelessness. There was a time in my life when I believed I could be with anyone and still remain unaffected. I thought my inner strength was unshakable, that I could carry light even in the darkest company. But I was wrong. I began to notice that after spending time with certain people, I would return home feeling drained, as though my inner flame had been dimmed. They didn't always say cruel things, nor did they intend harm. Yet their constant complaining, their obsession with material gain, and their endless criticism of others left me feeling heavier than when I arrived. It was as if I had opened the gates of my inner kingdom and allowed thieves to walk in unnoticed. One evening, after such a gathering, I sat quietly and asked myself, why do I feel so restless when I should feel peaceful? The answer was simple, but sharp. I was allowing the energy of others to invade my space. Buddhism teaches that our associations are like the soil in which our lives grow. If the soil is poisoned, the tree cannot bear healthy fruit. And I had been planting myself in poisoned soil without realizing it. I remember meeting a monk during a retreat who told me, "Be mindful of the company you keep, for they shape the rhythm of your mind." His words struck me deeply. I began to reflect on the people I admired most, the ones who radiated calmness, compassion, and quiet strength. Whenever I sat with them, I noticed how my mind settled, how my worries softened, and how my heart felt lighter. Their presence was like fresh air to my weary soul. So I started making choices. I did not cut people out of my life with anger or judgment, but I learned to protect my time and my presence. I visited those who uplifted me, who encouraged growth instead of gossip, who inspired gratitude instead of envy. With others, I practiced kindness from a distance. This shift was not easy. At times, I felt guilty for stepping back. But the more I honored my own energy, the more I realized that true compassion doesn't mean sacrificing your peace. It means guarding it so that you can share it genuinely. Now, when I think of wise associations, I think of building a circle where peace is nurtured, not stolen. I think of friends who water my spirit instead of draining it dry. Being in their presence reminds me that energy is contagious, and when I choose wisely, my inner kingdom thrives. This simple yet profound change has taught me that guarding energy is not only about what I avoid, but also about whom I welcome into my life. There was a phase in my life when I chased after everything I thought would make me happy. A better phone, nicer clothes, more recognition at work. Each desire felt like a promise of peace. Yet every time I fulfilled one, another appeared, louder and hungrier than before. It was like trying to fill a jar with no bottom. No matter how much I poured in, it was never enough. And with every pursuit, I felt my energy thinning, as though I was trading the quiet strength of my soul for momentary sparks that faded too quickly. One moment stands out vividly. I had worked tirelessly to buy something I longed for, believing it would finally satisfy me. When I finally held it in my hands, there was a rush of excitement, but within days the feeling was gone. I caught myself already looking at the next thing, already restless for more. It was in that restlessness that I saw the truth. Desire was not giving me energy, it was draining it. Like a fire, the more I fed it, the bigger it grew, consuming the peace I desperately wanted to protect. During a meditation retreat, a teacher told us, "Contentment is the greatest wealth." At first, those words sounded simple, almost too simple. But as I sat with them, I began to see how much energy I lost in chasing what I didn't truly need. I started practicing gratitude, not as a forced exercise, but as a lens through which I viewed my life. I looked around at what I already had: a roof, food, friends, moments of stillness, and slowly, the hunger for more began to soften. I learned to pause when a new desire arose. Instead of rushing to satisfy it, I asked myself, will this bring lasting peace or will it leave me wanting more? Most of the time I realized the craving was just noise, not a true need. By choosing not to follow every impulse, I felt lighter, freer. My energy no longer leaked into endless chasing. It stayed within me, steady and calm. Now I see desire as a wave. It rises, it peaks, and if I don't react, it falls back into stillness. In that stillness, I find strength. By guarding my energy against uncontrolled desires, I am no longer a prisoner of wanting. Instead, I live with a quiet joy, knowing that peace doesn't come from adding more to my life, but from appreciating what is already here. Every morning before the noise of the world begins, I sit quietly and follow my breath. At first, it felt strange, my mind racing, my body restless. But slowly I discovered a hidden strength in those small moments of awareness. Just by noticing my inhale and exhale, I felt my scattered energy return to me, as if my inner kingdom was being rebuilt brick by brick. One day, after a stressful encounter, instead of reacting, I paused and took 3 mindful breaths. That simple act saved me from spilling my energy into anger. Over time, I realized mindfulness is not only about meditation, it is about walking, eating, even listening with full presence. Each act done mindfully feels like placing a guard at the gate of my energy, protecting it from being wasted. This daily practice has become my shield, a quiet discipline that keeps my spirit strong and my heart at peace. Looking back, I see how easily I once allowed my energy to scatter, through careless words, draining company, endless desires, and a restless mind. But by guarding it with mindful speech, wise associations, simplicity, and daily practice, I've learned to live with greater peace. My energy is my kingdom, and when I protect it, life itself feels lighter, clearer, and deeply alive.